Hello and welcome to SME TV. I'm your host, Angela Vithulkis. The daily life of an SME is tough. Balancing your needs as an owner with the needs of your team and your family is next level tough. Now add kids into the mix, and just for good measure, let's chuck in the coronavirus and homeschooling. I believe we have now entered code red territory. A quick reminder to please subscribe to our YouTube channel to support us and all SMEs, and we encourage you to comment. Jump on right now if you want, down below, tell us what you think and share SME TV. Now joining me today to take parents out of code red territory is not one, but two doctors. Parenting expert Dr Rosina McAlpine. Hello Rosina.
Hi there.
And psychologist Dr Robyn Mills. Welcome Robyn.
Welcome, thank you.
Look, ladies, doctors, plural, it's a tough situation for SMEs anyway. We've got long hours, we work 80 to 100 plus, we're renowned for boasting on how many hours we do. But when you look at having just a relationship, that's tough to maintain. Now put kids into the mix, that's even tougher. So I guess what parents out there are screaming about, and I'll start with you, Rosina, is how can we do better as parents when we've got a full load and still be parenting?
Great question. And I think the answer starts with self-care. And I know that a lot of people say, what do you mean? You just said, what about work and what about kids? And, I've been in this game for many years as a, business owner myself and as a parenting educator. And the biggest thing I see is that you can't do everything if you aren't taking care of yourself. So self-care is actually the key. That's where I would start.
Robyn, I'll bring you into this discussion at this point, although I'm hearing parents already yelling at me and commenting below. I try to look after myself, but how can I do that and run my business and look after the kids and pay attention to my spouse? You've got people that are feeling guilty. What do you think, Robyn, about the guilt complex that we bring into life with this?
I think what happened when children stopped going to school is that people who were already functioning at their highest level suddenly had 6 hours of parenting per child added into their day. And when we consider, my daughter, for example, has 2 children, so that's 12 hours extra that was jammed into her day. Now, if you had children who were really cooperative and said, yes, Mum, I'll sit in front of the computer and I'll do exactly what you want me to do for 6 hours, you go ahead and do your work. Well, that might have been achievable. But these are kids who are going, I don't want to, I'm not in the mood.
Robyn, I'm going to interrupt you because what you've just said, and I did the maths, and you've said 2 kids, 6 hours of parenting, that's 12. That's the other side of that though, isn't it? Because they're not twins, assuming they're not twins, they're not going to be in the same class, they're not going to be at the same level of education. So you're trying to do 2 teaching methods for 2 different children and have your job and do everything else at home. Surely there would have been parents having nervous breakdowns left, right and centre.
Oh, absolutely. And on top of that, take out the grandparents, because remember, suddenly you're not allowed to have your grandparents help you in this way. You had to isolate from them because they were at the highest risk. So you took out normal supports and added in, maybe you had 4 children. Imagine 24 hours of extra work.
Yeah, I'll be okay with not imagining that part. Rosina, we've got a situation where we were stuck at home because of lockdowns and we've gone through that trauma. We're starting to see the other side perhaps. However, if we've got parents going back to work now and we have a situation which is very common where one person as an SME or one parent is leaving before children get up, maybe coming back after the children are in bed, or the witching hour as it's commonly called, how do they parent if they're not there? And that might be a weird question, Rosina, but they're essentially not there.
So there's 2 things to consider here. First of all, the last question you asked was, how can we have self-care if there's no time? And I really do want to address that one in a minute. But one of the things that you're saying is, how do you parent when you're not there? Well, we can phone them, we can be there remotely, of course. There are a lot of parents who do that, especially, parents who have got businesses that are leaving early in the morning. But one of the things that's important about that is not necessarily that you're not there. Kids need to know that you are there. You're on the end of a phone. You're literally a phone call away. And if there's a special time, for example, every morning, 7:30, you might have gone at 5, but at 7:30, we have a check-in. We have a good morning call. And then at, the witching hour, we know that we've got that afternoon, maybe we sit and have afternoon tea together for 5 minutes. So we can parent from afar. The key is to have that great schedule. Answer that question about guilt and self-care, because I think it's a huge one. And I don't want us to, jump over that one, because that's one of the biggest things people say to me. Parents say, I don't have time and I feel guilty or selfish if I take care of it. And I don't want us to leave this conversation without addressing both.
I think to both of the doctors, guilt is always going to be the biggest factor in how we cope. It's letting go of that guilt. So yes, Rosina, you hang on to that addressing the guilt issue. Coming back to Robyn, you've got guilt surrounding the whole process of being a parent and trying to make your business succeed as well for your family. There's the circle or the chicken and the egg, right? It comes around all the time. So Robyn, how do we cope with being super parents and a super SME?
It sounds to me, Angela, when you say that we have to perhaps lower our expectations, that we have these great expectations that we have to be super mum, we have to be super at work, or super father, of course, and that we have to be this incredible person in every one of our environments. But perhaps to lessen the guilt, we have to lower those expectations. So if the children don't want to cooperate, that we don't take it on as we're failing as a teacher now because we can't get our children to cooperate.
Most parents have never had the training that teachers have had, the many years of training that teachers have had to cope with that side of it. But they do have they're a family unit, they've got that relationship with their kids. Often you see parents quite frustrated because trying to make the kids' schedules or the kids' lives fit in around work when you're negotiating with little people who don't really understand that you've got meetings and appointments and bookings and clients. Rosina, what kind of advice can we give parents about prioritising without feeling guilty and making sure kids understand that they are a priority, but they have to work?
One of the things that we talk about is a family plan. Absolutely, sitting together. Whether you've got a toddler or a teenager, you can start this process from really young right through to teen years. And that's simply saying, explaining to kids. A lot of children think that money comes from a cash teller, right? Because we've never explained it. We've never explained that we, have created this business or, this enterprise to be able to have the beautiful home we have, the food that we have. So you're part of that team. Now, our son knows that as he supports our family, he's helping not only our family, but our business as a whole. So really sitting down together, even with the little ones, and explaining, when you get up in the morning and help me and get dressed and go out the door, that's helping our family and our business. And when you fight with me and you're like an octopus to try and get dressed, or you're a teenager going, I'm not getting up or I'm not making breakfast, you're really hurting our family. So in our house, we talk about Team McAlpine, and you can do the same in your home. So it really is about getting everybody on the same page.
Robyn, is it too early to start negotiating and explaining things to kids? At what age do they understand?
I think children understand from a really early age, like even a 2-year-old learning to share. You can give them two lollies or two, whatever it is, and ask them to give one to someone else and one to you. And the same with sharing a mother's time. Now mummy has to do this or daddy has to do this, and then we'll have playtime with you anytime. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I think the important thing there is really having that conversation up front. If we've all agreed, like in our lounge room, we actually have a whiteboard with all the things that we're working on at the moment. And so when things go awry, you go, hang on a sec, just have a quick look at the whiteboard and see what we're doing. Now, not all families want to do that. You might want to have a family planning book, or just, a little note on the fridge, with a magnet on it. But having that accountability, having that conversation, that actually gives your kids skills for life. So, drop the guilt and think, wow, I'm helping my child manage their time, be part of a family, cooperate. There's nothing to be guilty about that. I think that's an awesome way to start life and to be part of a family.
So I'm going to make sure we come back to, before the end of the interview, of how SMEs in general can be better bosses or better employers for their staff who have got, obviously, parenting issues and challenges themselves. But before we get to that towards the end of the interview, what I do want to just cover off with you is that I'm going to have parents screaming blue murder at me if I do not ask you this question. And you talk about it, Rosina, on the most requested areas of support that you both refer to, actually. And it's a huge one. I've underlined it. I've made it bold 10 times. Managing screen time at home. If it's not one of the biggest 21st century challenges that I've seen with parents, where they literally are addicted. These kids are addicted to the screens, whichever size it is, and they scream if you try and remove them from it. How can we manage that? And I'm sorry. My bad. I'll shoot that to you, Robyn, to start with.
I think that managing screen time is this huge issue, and Rosina's done a lot of work in this area. Yeah. And for me, it's about having to manage it, because prior to COVID, my grandchildren, for example, didn't have screen time. They actually didn't have iPads, and now they're having them for about 8 hours a day. And there is tantrums, absolute tantrums, when they're taken away. So now that they're back at school only yesterday in Victoria, now this is going to have to be withdrawn, and there are going to have to be negotiations. And I'd really like Rosina to come in on this, because she's done so much work in this area.
So we'll bring Rosina in. Rosina, please give some thought when you're answering this question on the fact that it is addiction, because clearly they have withdrawals, and we're saying, that's where the tantrums come in. It's something that no other generation of parents has faced. This is unique to this new generation of parents. How do we, besides taking it literally, physically, taking it off them and putting it in another room and then listening to the tantrum for half an hour, how do parents deal with this?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think this is the important part we have to accept. Now, when we've got a child who's little, we don't just say to them, okay, cross the road. We know that we have to protect them. We know that they're not old enough, they don't have the cognitive function, they aren't able to cross that road safely. So what do? We hold their hand, we stand there and we teach them. Yet we didn't do that with technology. We did not hold their hand. They are not old enough. If you know anything about brain science, you know that the prefrontal cortex, that, front part here, the frontal lobe, is what we need to self-regulate. That's what regulates our emotions, all of that part of us understanding consequences in the future. That develops for females early to mid 20s, 20s, and for males mid to late 20s. So we're giving something that's addictive to children who do not have the self-regulation mechanisms. That is why there's parental controls. That is why we need to take it away. And we can't say to ourselves, oh, well, I'll just let the kid cross the road. We don't do that. So we've got to be the same until our children can self-regulate, until they can...
Rosina, is it safe to say you have to be consistent with taking it away and not, and I'm by no means a parenting expert in any way, but there are days, I'm sure, where some parents are like, okay, fine, sit there and watch that, because, out of the low-hanging fruit, in order for me to make my life easier today, you and the iPad are the easy one. But that's the big challenge here too, isn't it? Being consistent when you're enacting or enforcing the discipline of no more.
So what the key here is that we want to teach self-regulation. And until they can...
Even to the young...
So this is why one of the things that we don't do or recommend parents do if they can is reward and punish with technology. As soon as you reward and punish with technology, you've taken the opportunity away for teaching that the reason why we don't do this, sweetie, is because it's not good for you. Now, you can have, conversations with your children to say, it's like, if with technology, it's like binging on lollies. We don't let our children do that. We don't just go, yep, eat whatever you want, eat lollies, eat chips, because we know that we need to have that, 80-20 rule or whatever it is in your home, right? Because that is healthy living. So by not rewarding and punishing with technology, we have the opportunity to say, the reason why I do this, sweetie, is not because I want to punish you or hurt you. This is to protect you until you can protect yourself, until you can self-regulate. And that's where the education piece comes in. So there is no, short-term fix for this. This is a long-term process that we little by little teach our children. Now, if I'm honest with you, this is a whole session, not a 5-minute conversation. And yeah, our children's addiction centres are very much aroused by this. And if you have a look at the brain of an addict of drugs or gambling, you'll see that there's similar
or any type of addiction. Robyn, I'm going to bring you in here on the key thing that I've written down is the reward and punishment, and I hadn't even realised that I actively participate in that when negotiating with the kids. So this is an issue because we think we're establishing boundaries by saying, oh, it's a treat, or then taking it away from them and having the punishment. Clearly we've been making a rod for our own back. So is that one of the things we, as parents, that we might have a weak point, the reward and punishment scenario?
Oh, absolutely, you're right, Angela. And from the research that Rosina's done, that when we use anything in life as a reward and punishment, we actually increase its value. Right. So suddenly it's even something that they want more than they might have wanted before. And that is us taking control. And what Rosina's saying is that we need to help them learn to control it themselves, because they're developing neural pathways of this wanting when it's a reward.
And Sorry, Robyn, go ahead.
And we are also able to distract with other incredible fun and beautiful things away from the iPad, so that rather than saying we're taking this away from you, we're giving something. We're going to the park. We're going to play basketball, something that
It is distracting them and sort of moving on to something else. Rosina, we are going to run out of time. That's not unusual with me and speaking to people who clearly are experts on the subject, something that is on the back of every parent at the moment. Quickly, if we can just address how SMEs can be better employers for their staff in terms of parenting tips or helping them. I know you've referred to, being flexible, allowing your employees who are parents to maybe look at their start and finish times and days off for the kids. Have you got any other advice for SMEs how they can be a standout parent, help as an employer for their team who are parents?
The first thing to acknowledge is that it really has to be a partnership between employers and employees with families. So that's really important. It's not just a one-way street there. The most important thing, and I keep coming back to this, is if employers allow and support their employees to have a little bit of self-care, they are better employees, they are better parents, they have less guilt. So the big key here is what are employers doing to support parents to better parent so that they can drop that parenting guilt, like, programs, strategies to help them? Secondly, are they giving them time for self-care? Because that will be the foundation for, I'm going to be great in myself, I'm going to be able to manage the kids, and I'm also going to be an awesome employee. So I think that would be a key.
Rosina, that's an interesting aspect that you bring up, because my mind automatically went to how can I help my team who have kids have more time for their kids, but you've just gone about that the other way. It's how can I give my staff and my team time for themselves so that they are better, healthier, physically more active for both sides, for their work and for their family life. So again, it's not about the kids.
it actually ends up being about the kids, because, you know, when we talk about feeling selfish for taking time out, this is where I have a mantra: throw selfish in the rubbish, because that makes no sense whatsoever.
I'm going to quote you on that. Selfish in the rubbish, yeah.
And instead talk about being self-full. If we deplete and deplete and deplete ourselves, we can't be self-full. So it's all about topping up. If you're filled with joy, if you're filled with energy, if you're filled with inspiration, what are you going to give your children and your employer? If you're filled with resentment, tiredness, anger, frustration, what are you going to give?
I hear you. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, so I am just going to have to wrap this up. But firstly, thank you to both our doctors, Dr Rosina and Dr Robyn, for coming here. And we are going to talk again, and we're going to address workplace bullying, home bullying, school bullying, because it's a major topic these days as well, and it occurs everywhere, both on the parents and the kids. We'll address that next time. Thank you both for joining us. We appreciate your time. To everybody out there, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can help us support SMEs in all of their endeavours, both in business and in their private life. And of course, you can share, like and comment. A big shout out to the SME Association for their support of SME TV. And you can reach us on all the socials, but more importantly, if you've got anything to add you'd like to have us look at for the business community, you can email us, news@smea.org.au, and we're across all the socials, as I mentioned. We'll catch you next time.